Now, several German states have moved closer to a hard lockdown as officials warn that continued high coronavirus infections could overwhelm hospitals and that too many people are ignoring existing pandemic restrictions. We're going to cross straight to Berlin, talk to our correspondent who joins us from there, Nick Spicer now. Nick, Germany relatively escaped the first round of coronavirus in Europe. Is it paying for that now?
I mean, it's hard to really establish the science as to why there is this surge, but the facts are about 6 weeks ago we were getting 4,000 cases a day, and now we're about 20,000, which by the government's own yardstick is a situation out of control. How that happened, certainly people perhaps didn't follow the guidelines. We're in a sort of lockdown light here generally in Germany, which means that shops are open, schools are open, bars and restaurants are closed. However, things where you're in close contact with people are generally closed. People tend to wear masks. We have had some demonstrations against mask wearing, but these people don't really represent a large percent of the population. I think structurally, one thing that is for sure is that there is a patchwork of governance here in Germany. It's a federation, 16 Länder or provinces or regions, and they decide how to fight the virus. Angela Merkel has her hands tied to a certain extent, even though the German Chancellor I'm talking about, of course, even though she can summon them to meetings that are virtual or in person and say, hey, we have to have a national strategy, they ultimately decide. So there's a north-south split, with the southern Länder actually more inclined to hard lockdowns than the northern regions, which are more inclined to keep things open. So that's one of the reasons why. And the latest thing that we have now, you see behind me there's a public market. Well, Christmas markets, which are a big tradition here in Germany with around 6 million people visiting a year, are really going to be locked down to a certain extent. So a lot of shops are selling mulled wine. You can't go up and down the street where I live, including at the Indian restaurant, without having a glass of mulled wine put in your hand, basically. Of course, you have to buy it. And the government is worried about that. People gathering to drink mulled wine in the street, that's the best socializing they can do, and spreading the virus that way.
Can't get rid of that, Nick. What measures then are being considered?
Well, I think the government is looking at getting rid of the mulled wine. That's a serious discussion. And also using the Christmas period of 2 weeks when things are kind of shut down anyway to make it a real hard lockdown, allowing people to gather for Christmas and then just putting the padlock on the entire economy and saying, we're going to shut this down. This is when we're going to get tough. People aren't moving around much anyway. I mean, once they've gathered in their family units, respecting the COVID rules, not too many households getting together according to the region, and just try to use that window of opportunity, if you will, to actually take a good swipe at getting that curve to go back down to where it was before. And of course, it needs to be said that Germany is now rolling out the virus. It was the vaccine, which was invented by a couple here in Germany. People are getting the vaccine starting this month and into all the way into the summer. So the fear is people will perhaps get a little bit lackadaisical and think a cure is around the corner. So the government has to fight that psychological, if you will, that laxism as it moves towards a hard lockdown, possibly over Christmas.
Nick, thanks very much. Nick Spicer there, obviously off to get himself a glass of mulled wine while he still can.